teachers, is setting up your circle time area a struggle? Which things should you include in this area? And what can you do without? And most importantly, how can you fit it all in the space that you have? In today's episode, we're diving deep into creating the perfect circle time area for your little learners, a space that inspires, educates, and keeps your day running smoothly. Let's begin with the heart of any good circle time area, and that's the circle time board. This area serves as a way to keep you and your students on track all day long. Now, the first rule of thumb for a successful circle time area is try to keep everything at or just slightly above the child's eye level, because things that are placed too high, they just become decor. The second rule of thumb is that less is more. That's right, you heard me. Your circle time board needs to have less rather than more on it. Because if there's too many things on the board, it becomes visual clutter for your students, and they will get overwhelmed and actually tune out what you are saying. So if you really want kids to focus and pay more attention, less is definitely more. I have a great blog post about this over at Pre-K Pages. If you are listening along, go to prekpages.com and type Focus Wall into the search box. If you're watching along on YouTube, go directly below this video, click on Show More, and there'll be a link for you there. Next up is the flannel board. I firmly believe that every circle time area should have a flannel board. This makes telling stories or retelling stories more fun and engaging and interactive for your young children. And that brings me to the daily picture schedule. This is a must for every single high-quality early childhood program out there. Your daily picture schedule isn't just a tool for you to keep track of time or to keep you on track or your kids on track. It actually has many, many educational benefits. And so research has shown that young children need to feel safe and secure in their environment, and they absolutely must know what comes next. So you're going to use your daily picture schedule as a tool to remind and reinforce all day long what comes next. Now, of course, some of your children will learn very quickly what comes next, and they'll feel very confident that their routine is firmly set and consistent. Other students will take much longer to feel that sense of safety and security. And I have had students in classes over the years who beg for the picture schedule on the last day of school, because I usually keep it out all year, put it away on the last day as we're packing up. And I've had some kids say, no, don't do that. I need that picture schedule. And so it's just so handy. It's a must in your circle time area. It needs to be prominently displayed and used often by you, referring to every single time that you're going to transition, but also reviewing it in the beginning and at the end of the day and throughout the day, really, just to remind kids what comes next. Now, of course, books are the daily lifeblood of circle time, right? So it's important to keep your daily read-alouds. So I'm assuming you make lesson plans, and every day you have a different book scheduled to be read during your circle time. So it's super important to have those books handy at your fingertips. So I quite often will have a basket, a tub, or even a bag where I keep the read-aloud of the day. And my students know, do not touch the bag. You can also put it on a shelf. So in the picture on the screen, you can see I have like a bookshelf right next to my circle time area. And on the top two shelves, the kids know those are mine. Those things are my props and my tools for circle time. And I have a little picture there of a hand with the international no symbol over it. That means don't touch. In the bottom two shelves, I typically have puzzles, because when we're not in our circle time area, it's not being used, right? So it can be used as a center. So it's super important to have some place for you to put your props and your tools. And so that bag, that basket, that tub, whatever it is, when you select your 5 books that you're going to read aloud during a circle time for the week, put them right in there so that you will have quick and easy access, because every single second that you spend fumbling to find something is one more second that your kids have to misbehave. So that brings me to something that may sound silly to some of you, but I think is an absolute critical must-have tool for circle time, and that is the pointer. Whether you use a finger pointer or some other kind of pointer, these things are so important because you're going to be using them all year long to introduce and reinforce concepts of print in your circle time area. So you might be pointing to the words in a big book. You might be using it to point to the daily schedule to remind kids what comes next. You might be using it to point to your who is here today type of chart that you probably have where kids will check in with their name. You can use it to point to classroom helpers on your circle time board, the alphabet, numbers, anything like that that you have in that area. The pointer is going to be your friend, and changing them up frequently is fun too because then it adds more interest and excitement for your students. So must have finger pointers or some sort of pointers. The next one is super fun, but also scary for some teachers, and it is your classroom puppet. So this puppet, I'm going to start off with the basics of classroom puppets because I get asked these questions all the time. It is just for the teacher. The teacher brings the magic to this puppet and it turns it into almost like your co-teacher, right? Your, in this case, owl co-teacher. And you're going to use this just for circle time. It's very special. There are puppets for the children in the classroom and other areas. This one is just for you to use because you're going to be lending it voice all year long. Now, if you've been following me for any length of time on any one of my social channels or here at Elevating Early Childhood, you know I'm a big proponent of puppets. This one is an owl. I found him at IKEA several years ago. I don't know if they still have them, but there are ways to source affordable puppets. And so I made him a little nest, or her, I call it Owly. I made them a nest out of a paper bag, like a paper bag from the grocery store. I just ripped it up into, I shredded it. And then I found an old wreath that I had had on my door at one point in my life that was in storage. And I just wrapped the bag, the paper from the bag around the wreath. And then I put a larger piece of the bag in the bottom and I glued it all around. And now he's got this nice little nest that sits on top of a cabinet in my circle time area. And so when I need him, I reach up on the cabinet. It's out of the reach of the students and they can see the little nest and so forth. And sometimes you can put little props in there with your puppet, however you want to do it. Some people put them in mailboxes and they come out and they bring mail. Some people put them in a doghouse if it's a dog, or many, many, many different ways. This is where you get to use that teacher creativity that we all love, right? So your classroom puppet is going to be so helpful. It can help you introduce new themes and new concepts, your daily read aloud, introduce guests. It can introduce anything, and it can also talk to you. And I like to use that feature. Pretend talk to you to let the students know that they need to be quiet because, I can't hear Owly. What was Owly going to say? And I've modeled this a few other times here on the podcast as well. So you can go back and check those episodes if you're interested in learning more about the classroom puppet. It can be anything you want. I have an alligator that I use too sometimes. So whatever works for you. This one was super inexpensive because it was at IKEA, and so therefore it's for me. So that brings me to the big giant elephant in the room, and that is the calendar, right? We've been doing calendar in the classroom for so many decades that it's just become one of those things we do because it's always been what we've done. And I'm a big proponent of working smarter and not harder. And I do believe that children can learn many things through calendar, but should they? Is that the best way to teach things like colors, numbers, shapes, patterns, sequences? Is that the best way for them to learn those things? And to me, I believe the answer is no. That's not the best way. There are many other ways to do those things. Those are just some added things that you can do with the calendar. And then other people say the calendar they do it in pre-K because it's what they're going to do in kindergarten. And to me, that seems like saying, let's say you had an infant class, you were teaching a class of infants, right, in a childcare facility, and you wanted to prepare them for the twos class, so you were forcing them to walk. That would be ridiculous, right? Because we don't tell infants who are less than 12 months old that they must be walking. And we're certainly not going to be forcing them to walk because you can't do what you're not ready for. So if the research shows us that children really don't understand the concept of yesterday, today, and tomorrow until they're older than 4, then that just begs the question, is it really the best use of their time to have them use this calendar, right? This adult type of calendar. And so I like to use a linear calendar. And on the screen, you can see this calendar goes in a left to right linear progression across, in this case, the board, right? I've done it a lot of different ways. My favorite way is on a whiteboard at the very bottom, like where the ledge and the chalk would usually go, and is to put it up there. And of course, sometimes it can get a little long. If you have a traditional public school whiteboard, it will always fit, right? But you have the option of your printer settings to make it smaller. And of course, you can get this linear calendar in my shop if you want, but I have totally made them myself before using sentence strips and squares of paper and paper clips. There's a lot of different ways to do it. This is just a quick and easy way that you can see here on the screen. And it really helps children understand that each day we flip over the cards and it shows them the numbers and the different, like, is it a school day or a home day? Is there a special event on this day, like so-and-so's birthday or picture day? And as the month goes on, they can see these pictures on the linear calendar grow. And so, oh, they're like, that's more. So each day that we go in the month, that's more days. And we can count how many days until the end and so forth. It's so much more effective, and we're not worrying about teaching patterns, colors, shapes, any of that kind of stuff, because that's all stuff that we can teach much better in other ways. It's not necessary to have a calendar to do that. And so this is highly effective with young children, and it's what a lot of teachers these days have moved towards, because the research is very clear that the traditional calendar really isn't the most appropriate method for teaching days of the week, months of the year, and so forth to young children who may or may not be ready for it, right? And certainly not at the 3-year-old age. Next up is that one thing that almost all early childhood teachers have, and that is the classroom helper chart. There are so many benefits of having classroom helpers in the classroom. That's giving kids responsibility. It helps them feel like there's a sense of community and that we're all part of a team. Lots of different benefits of having classroom helpers. So there are many different ways to do it, though. The system that I use is super simple. You just cut out the pictures that are included in the classroom helper document, and you glue them to the fronts of either envelopes or library pockets, and then glue those to a poster board. And then you keep the children's names on sticks, preferably with their picture if you can, like cut out a picture and glue it on top. And then you just put the pictures on the sticks inside the pockets and just rotate those once a week to the next pocket over to the right. And that is so simple, so quick, so easy. No fancy systems that take a lot of time or a lot of effort to track. Just super simple and easy. But I think it's really important that children can start learning about the different things that they can do, right? Because when they come to us in pre-K, they quite often don't think they can do anything. And so this gives them that sense of accomplishment, right? And achievement too. So many, many benefits of classroom helpers. Another thing that's part of my circle time routine is to look at the attendance chart. And so this has been something that I've done from day one in my classroom for more than 2 decades. And that is when children enter the classroom, one of the first things they do in that routine is to find their name card. I've placed them all on the table. They're all face up. They all have a picture of the child and their name on the card. And they go and they take that card and they put it in whatever chart that you have set up for them, usually a pocket chart with the pictures at the top of 2 columns, home, like a picture of a house or an apartment, and then a picture of the school. And they go and they place their name card under the picture of at school, right? And so by the time everyone has arrived, there will be sometimes one or two pictures left on the table, and that's who is absent. So I or a student that I've assigned to do that will take those two and put it on the home side. So we're missing 2 students today. We have 14 who are here. And what we do during circle time is look at all of that data that we've collected, right? So before we even really take off our backpack, we've collected data for the day. How great does that look for the administrators, right? Now, during a circle time, we're going to analyze that data that we collected, and we're going to go over how many children are here. Let's see which column has more, which column has less. So we're getting lots of math practice, oral language practice in there, name recognition skills. So I use my pointer during that time to point to the pocket chart where they have placed their name cards. So we'll count how many people are here today. Let's count them. 1, 2, that's 1-to-1 correspondence, right? Because I'm touching each name card as I go. 1, 2, 3. Then I'll take out a marker and we'll write the number of people that are here somewhere nearby. And then we do the same. How many people are absent? And pretty soon you'll have kids shouting out the answer on the absent side, because it's always less, right? Because they can recognize it right away. Like there's only 2 cards. Some kids will say 2. Well, how did you know? We need to count them to be sure. 1, 2. So having that type of check-in every day is super helpful. And for those of you in public schools who take attendance electronically, this is super helpful, because now you can go through and say, aha, I know who's absent. Mark those really quickly on your device, and the rest present so that you don't forget. So that was kind of a trick that I had, because all the years that I taught, we didn't always have that system. It kind of came along later, right? And it was a reminder for me that that's when I needed to put in the attendance, right? Before we really started getting deep into circle time. So that brings me to a really hot button topic, and that is all of those alphabet, number, colors, and shapes posters that a lot of teachers like to put in their circle time area. And I'm here to tell you, I'm releasing you from the feeling of responsibility that you must include these things in order to have a good circle time. In fact, going back to what I said before, less is always more. We want to reduce that visual clutter, help children focus more. And the way we do that is not having it look like a poster factory threw up on our circle time board, because just plastering something on the wall doesn't actually mean the children are learning it. So there are many opportunities to learn colors and shapes just in our daily lives by pointing out things like, Jenny, can you bring me the red crayon? Or Bobby, can you get the blue Lego? Things like that. Those are more natural ways to help children learn colors. And there's also the same for shapes. Oh, I noticed that triangular alarm over the door. That is not triangular, probably rectangular, but you get my drift, right? There's so many more natural ways to do that. We don't need to take up any of our children's valuable time or any of our valuable ink or laminating film or paper to create these posters that really don't have a lot of benefit. Now, I will say that I do like to have alphabet posters there, because I'm going to be referencing those a lot when I'm teaching concepts of print. Oh, let's look for the first letter in this sentence. I'm using my pointer and I'm pointing maybe in a big book, and somebody might say, that's the letter B. Do you think so? Let's look at our chart. What do we see up there that sounds like it says B? And we'll look up there. Maybe there's a ball for the letter B on the wall, and I'll point to the B, and I'll point to the ball, and then I'll point to the word in the book, and maybe the first word is birthday. Birthday and ball. They both start with the letter B. You're right. I might do things like that, or I might focus on a child's first letter in their name. Like today, Amanda is going to be helping us write the daily message, morning message, news, whatever you call it. Amanda. And we're going to talk about the first letter in her name is the letter A. I could point to the letter A. So I'm going to reference those alphabet and maybe the number posters as well during my circle time area. So I'm going to locate them nearby, but not necessarily make them the whole thing. And I am one of those sticklers for having things go in a straight line all the way across, because kids at the young age of 3 to 5 don't know about the return sweep. You and I as adults know that when we get to the end of the line, we go back over here, but little kids don't know that. So they're going to go to the end of the line and go down and backwards. I've seen it a million times over all the decades I've taught. This is what they do. It's not natural for them to go to the end of the line, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. That is not how it works. So we have to be really mindful of that if possible. So I'm a proponent of, if possible, shrinking those posters down to half page instead of a full page if you have to, right? Our rule of thumb in my former school district was it had to be seen from across the room. I don't know why, but it did. So I like to think of, okay, can it be seen by all the students in my class, even those sitting the furthest from me at circle time? So that's my rule of thumb. So I can sometimes shrink them down and put them in that linear fashion on the board. Same goes for the linear calendar as well. I try my hardest to do that. I have been in situations where I just couldn't do that because there were like cubbies or cabinets or, some such thing on the wall that impeded me from doing that. But do your best, right? That's all we can do, is to do our best and then modify when we can't make it happen. But I am a proponent of that. These posters that are featured in the video or the picture on the screen, they're available again in my shop, as was the linear calendar, as were the classroom helpers. So everything is available in the shop. You can look below this video if you're watching along for the links to those things. And if you're going to pre-K pages, if you're listening along, you can type the name of those things into the search box there, like alphabet posters, linear calendar, classroom helpers, whatever it is. So that brings me to my favorite part of circle time, and that is music. I truly believe that if there is no music, then it is not circle time. The research is very, very clear on this. Young children learn so much through music, and it supports their development of executive function skills, which is our top priority in the early childhood classroom. It supports all kinds of academics as well. You've got your patterns and your beats and your claps and oral language development. You can teach any concept. So you want to talk about alphabet, numbers, colors, letters, and shapes. Those things can all be taught through music naturally. So super important to have those. I also, of course, am a huge proponent of finger plays. So we're going to have little pictures of, like, big enough for the kids to see, of the different familiar songs that we're very familiar with as a class, right? So my collection of these grows as the year goes on. And I like to let them choose the songs because the songs don't matter to me, but they do matter to the children, right? I just know that we need to be singing songs. And sometimes I'll have some thematic songs that are just out for, like, say, fall. I'll have the gray squirrel song, things like that. We don't sing it all year long, but it comes and it goes. And then some are staples, like Wheels on the Bus, Head, Shoulders, Knees, and Toes. But you're going to want to have some kind of way for your kids to choose when you invite them to choose. It's not all the time. We don't always sing just what they want. But I like to put them on craft sticks, right? Otherwise known as popsicle sticks here in the US. Put their picture on the picture of the song, or a picture that represents the song rather, on the top of the craft stick, and then keep a collection of those in like a little can or something, a little soup can nearby, so that your kids can choose one, or you can pull one out that you want to focus on that day. So songs, super, super, super important. And another critical component of your circle time area are your classroom rules. Now, I know there are lots of folks out there who advocate for the children making the rules, and I think that's awesome if your kids all speak the same language that you do. So in my situation, working exclusively with second language learners, that was not possible for me. So what I tried to do was to create very, very clear, very, very simple rules that could easily be depicted with one picture. So on the screen, you can see the rules that we had in my classroom. So it says, our hands are for helping, right? Feet are for walking, and so forth. There's a picture of a shoe walking, right? There's a picture of a hand. Very, very clear rules in your circle time area. I especially believe that, children who are 3, are they really capable of creating rules on their own? It's just not always developmentally appropriate. I think it can be for older children, maybe kindergarten and up, and certainly for your native language speakers who share the same language that you speak. But when you are in a situation where you're teaching English to a group of non-English speakers, in my case, that was how I did it all my years. And it wasn't realistic at that time because I would have kids who didn't know one single word of English on the first day. So this is how we got used to the rules, routines, and procedures of the class was through these very clear rules. And in the beginning of the year, I start out with that rules poster on the board, and they're very simple, they're very kid friendly, they have pictures. And I let them know every day, what do we come to school to do? I ask them. And they say, we come to school to learn. In the beginning, I have to help them because they don't know. And what's my job as the teacher? Your job is to keep us safe, right? So I go through those rules and I say, these are the things that help me keep you safe and help you keep each other safe. And we go through those rules. By the end of the first 2 weeks, we're going through those rules every single day. A lot of the kids have got it down, and I'll give them the pointer and say, can you read our rules? They ask the person holding the pointer, why do we come to school? And we all say, we come to school to learn. What's the teacher's job? Her job is to keep us safe. It's very comforting for the kids. And when I stop doing it, because sometimes I'm like, well, we kind of know the rules. It's like late October now. And so I'll kind of phase that out. And they'll say, hey, you didn't do the rules today. And then I'll say something like, that's because most of us have already learned them all. Isn't that exciting? We come to school to learn and we actually did it, and then I'll revisit it when needed. When it's become clear that we need to revisit the rules, I'll do that throughout the year, of course. And last, but certainly not least, is my center choice board. Now, there are a million different ways to do this, but those of you who've followed me for any length of time now know that I am a staunch advocate for children making choices of their own choosing during center time. And the research on this is extremely clear. Young children who make their own choices feel empowered, right? Because they have very little choice in their life. They're told when to get up, what to eat, what to wear, when to go to the bathroom. They don't decide when they get picked up or dropped off at school. They just don't have any say in their life. So whenever we can give them a choice to make on their own is a great opportunity for them. So for example, letting your kids pick their own clothes. A lot of people do that these days. It didn't always happen back in the day, but now it really helps kids feel a sense of ownership and a sense of control in their life where they feel out of control a lot. Letting them choose centers. What does it matter to me where they go, right? It shouldn't, because we're going to make sure that every single center in that classroom has opportunities for reading, for writing, and for doing all kinds of things. So it's not just like only math learning is happening in the math center and only literacy learning is happening in the ABC center and so forth. We can make all of those things happen in all of the centers by using our classroom environment to do that. So I am not concerned at all about forcing children to go to centers. I'm not concerned at all about making sure they go to every single one. I'm all about creating that environment, that really nurturing environment where they can get all of the things at all of the centers and following their own lead and their own choice. And that's going to help develop executive function skills, which again, I've said this before and I'll say it again, should be our very top priority in early childhood. So when they are making their own choices, they are learning time management skills, task initiation, problem solving, and so much more. So we don't want to rob them of these rich opportunities to learn crucial lifelong skills by forcing them to go. So all that to say, I like the choice board. I've done it many different ways over the years. With the large classes, I have 4 smaller choice boards and I group them. That's just because Texas, I'm looking at you here, no class size cap in pre-K. So we were looking at 22 or more kids every year, and that just becomes crowd control at that point, right? So if you have a regular size class that's about 16 to 18, or even 14 is great, then you might not need that kind of a thing. And children can choose around the board. There's pictures. And again, those are available in my store. The classroom management system is available there. And you can get those cards and you create your own. So you might not have all those centers that I listed inside of that package. You just choose the ones you do have, right? And then I just glued them around the outside of a poster board. And before they go to centers, they can plan their center choice. Or if you came to the summit this summer, we also have those individual center choice boards as well. So that's my soapbox when it comes to choices at center time. And I know some of you are out there cheering along because you've been on this journey with me for a long time in advocating for young children and making their own choices, empowered choices, right? So there you have it. Now you know that setting up your circle time area doesn't have to be difficult. And most importantly, you learned that less is more. If you liked this circle time setup episode, then you're in for a real treat because we dive much deeper into this topic in my exclusive training, Skyrocket Circle Time Success. You can unlock advanced strategies, expert tips, and more to make every single circle time unforgettable. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this Circle Time Setup episode. Be sure you're subscribed to Elevating Early Childhood wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. Until next time, I'm Vanessa Levin. Onward and upward.